Low-income tenants in California could have their rental debt completely erased. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an article for you today, and it's going to go over exactly what's going on in California in terms of the rental assistance program. The governor of California has been talking about completely eliminating the debt that is owed to landlords that's coming from tenants. But before I get into that article, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you want to see on this channel. I'm going to work to keep bringing you great articles about the Eviction Moratorium and other news that's of interest to landlords. So, this article, it comes to us from timesofsandiego.com, and it says, eligible tenants, landlords, will have rental debt erased. Will it come soon enough? Now this article, it kind of goes more into the tenant side of it, but I'm going to let you know exactly what I think of, what's going on here, and if I think it's a good idea or not. And I'll give you a little preview, and I don't agree with 100% of what's going on here, but let's see what the article says. By the end of this week, eligible tenants in the San Diego region will start seeing 100% of past due rents erased from the beginning of the pandemic through the end of September. A new state law that extends eviction protections also allows local agencies to cover all back rent due for low-income tenants impacted by COVID-19. This comes after news organizations across the state, including iNewsSource, reported low participation rates for rental and utility assistance programs, which left millions of dollars unspent. So, the key thing that I've noticed about this whole thing where they're talking about paying back 100% of the rent that is owed is that it is for low-income tenants, okay? So, the question is, how low income? And I'm not sure if it says in this article, but from what I had read before, it is pretty low income. So a lot of the people who are, eligible for rental assistance, they will not qualify for this 100% return in or 100% payoff by the state. This only covers people who are just basically in destitute poverty, barely able to get by. But I think it's a good thing that the state is giving some landlords 100% of what is owed, but in my opinion, they should be giving all landlords who are, suffering through the eviction moratorium 100% of what they are owed, not just not just the super low income, because these landlords haven't been able to get these tenants out of their properties, and that's all caused by the government. So the government should make them whole by getting that money to them, and that's not what's going on here. It's kind of like a partial reimbursement. So I believe that when I read another article about the state of California, they said that landlords were eligible for, I believe it was up to 80% of what was owed for 12 months, and then after that only 25% of what was owed for the next 3 months. I'm not exactly sure, but for the people who don't qualify for this 100% reimbursement, they are not going to be made whole at all. Okay, yeah, and it says right here, previously, eligible tenants could only receive 80% of past due rent, and landlords had to agree to waive the rest. Records show that the landlords of more than 1,000 households throughout the San Diego County didn't participate. State officials hope that erasing all rental debt will increase the number of applications and the amount of money going out the door. It's exactly what tenants and landlords have been calling for. Well, I'm not exactly sure that's going to work, because the reasons that a lot of people weren't participating weren't just because they weren't getting 100% compensated. I mean, part of the reason was that if you accepted the money, you wouldn't be able to get rid of that tenant still. So you would still have this tenant in your property who, after the government money runs dry, isn't paying. And then you have to go through the eviction process, and you still want to get that person out of there. And that's just not it's just not going to work for a lot of landlords. The other thing is that if the landlord wants to raise the rent for that unit, then they can't do it if they accept this rental assistance. So yeah, there are still, even with 100% compensation for what they've lost, there are good reasons that a lot of landlords just don't want to accept it. But my personal opinion is that if you are about to lose your property, if you are suffering major financial distress and you can get this money, take it, okay? Don't lose your property. Don't go into bankruptcy. Don't have, your finances completely destroyed when you have this option available. That's my personal opinion, okay? So, do what's best for you. Even so, some wonder if September 30th, when eviction protections expire, will buy enough time for those who have been struggling for the past 16 months. The ongoing relief efforts have been moving at a snail's pace, thanks largely to bureaucratic red tape and the time it takes to process applications. Now the region stands to receive at least $112.8 million in additional federal coronavirus aid. That doesn't include the $211 million in state and federal funding received earlier this year, and only 25% of that money has been spent, according to the most recent data available. Yep. Once again, the bureaucracy, the red tape, the slow way the government moves is the reason that a lot of the money hasn't been distributed. And it's also the reason why a lot of people haven't been participating in the program, because they just don't think it works. If you move a program this slow and you're in financial distress, why would you want to sit around for months waiting to maybe get a check from the government? People just want these tenants out, and they want to get paying tenants in so that they can be truly made whole. That's a huge amount of money to move in a very short amount of time, said Lucinda Lilly, president of the Southern California Rental Housing Association. More than 700,000 California households are behind on rent, with each household racking up about $4,400 in debt on average, according to the research firm PolicyLink. A local jobs report published last month revealed 102,100 people in the San Diego region were still unemployed in mid-April, more than double the pre-pandemic figures. And although an eviction moratorium has kept people in their homes, rental debt has continued to pile up in a county where census data shows nearly half of all housing units are occupied by renters. Yeah, that's bad news right there. They still have pretty high unemployment in their area. But the good news is that the economy is coming back. But we have to get things back to normal, and that's just the truth, okay? Regardless of what the unemployment situation is, we need to get things back to normal. We need to get businesses operating normally again so that, one day we can look back on this and say, hey, yeah, we survived. But as long as they have the eviction moratorium in place, as long as the landlords are not made whole, all I can do is I can blame the government. Places like California, I can blame the federal government for creating the issues that they now are trying to fix at the last minute. The city and county of San Diego started sending payments last week to households that already received 80% of past due rent, making them whole through September 30th. Chula Vista will start this week. Bridging the gap. Earlier this year, California legislators passed a law, SB 91, that aimed to incentivize landlords to participate with rent relief efforts and keep people in their homes during the pandemic. The state offered to pay 80% of any rent owed from April 2020 through the end of March 2021 if landlords agreed to waive the rest. If they refuse, eligible tenants would receive a payment for 25% of their rental debt over the same period and still be protected from eviction. Yeah, that was a good way to make sure that landlords weren't incentivized to participate and that tenants were, do their best to try to piss their landlords off so they don't participate, because the state basically is saying that they would give 25% payment directly to the tenants. The tenants don't ever have to pay any of that money to the landlord. So it's just like a free check for them, right? And they still can't be evicted. I mean, what kind of moron created this program? Somebody who has no clue, okay? No clue what they're doing. I mean, that's completely ridiculous. If you're owed $2,000 a month rent, that means the state is writing a $500 check to a tenant, and that person can't be evicted. The tenant has no incentive to actually pay the landlord what's owed. It's just a complete joke. So the way California was doing it before, and even the way they're doing it now, was so ridiculous that it made no sense whatsoever. Instead, they should have been giving the payments directly to the landlords. They're the ones who are suffering the financial loss, okay? God, I mean, it's hard to believe they couldn't figure this out. But yeah, I mean, interesting article. I really don't like the things that are going on out there in California. It doesn't surprise me, of course. I mean, it's a very tenant friendly state, very rough for landlords to operate out there. You really got to know what you're doing, and I just would never want to deal with it myself. So for all the small landlords out there especially, hang in there. Hopefully this stuff comes to an end, and like I said before, just do whatever it takes to make sure that you keep your property and your finances are 100% in good order.